Hi everyone, and welcome to Keeping Tabs on the Sabbs. So for this past year, our sabbatical officers have been doing wondrous things for this university, and the new ones have been elected now. But let's see what the past ones have been up to. So first of all, we have Tom Curry.
Hey.
Hi Tom, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
It's really nice having you back. So our first question for you is, last year you held the weekly hour drop-in sessions on the plaza, but it doesn't seem to have happened this year. Why is that?
I think one of the reasons was just it's just like for every hour that you're doing something, you want to make sure you're getting as much impact as you can. And something we found was that a lot of students unfortunately weren't able to make the drop-in hour. A lot of the time was me, unfortunately, just sitting there not really doing anything. So part of that was really, is this the best use of my time? And then other feedback from students was, we'd probably like to hear more from you online, say using Facebook, using email, using those different methods. And I suppose then this second year, I've been a lot more busy, sort of behind the scenes, really trying to help groups, sort of lead through the groups really, rather than being like a one-man army, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. So in your 2015 manifesto, you pledged to obtain a activities common room by September 2015. So what happened to that?
Yeah, we did do it. It's the folks room, so what was previously the KT room, has now been converted into a fully functional room that societies can use, and we've already had several societies use it. We use it for our committee meetings at Stock Exec, and if anyone is wondering how to use that space, if they just come to the Student Activity Centre, just come to reception and we'll be able to give you as much information as you need. But it's a fantastic space, it's got sofas, it's got a planning table, it's got everything you need, and the great thing about it is you don't have to go through timetabling to book it, you can go straight for us.
Okay, that's great. So, again, going back to your manifesto from 2015, you pledged a greater support for student media. Now, as a student media member, I haven't met, I know that some of the committee members haven't met with you this year, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I understand you were off for a few months, but could you explain a little bit further?
Yeah, sure, that's absolutely fine. So what I originally done beforehand in my first year was that I had done monthly meetings or so with the heads of student media. So the head of KTV, head of Inquire and head of CSR, and just spoke to them, seen what was going on, that kind of thing. And for my second year, I felt it would probably better to meet with all the committees, and that was something I was really keen on engaging in. Naturally, we had the summer where unfortunately no one was here. We had the first term, which was very hectic getting everyone started, and then unfortunately, due to a number of reasons, I had to take some time off due to just, to be in all honesty, I felt it just got a bit too much on top of me, and there was simply too much work to do, and I was feeling very much under pressure, and so I had to take some time off, and unfortunately it's just not really happened this year, and for that I apologise.
Oh, well, thank you. It's nice to know that you are still around, as you said before. So, would you not agree that the Society's executive is a poor replacement for the Society's federation due to lack of representation and accountability?
Can you give any more more detail on that accountability? Sorry.
Well, I suppose, because these are questions that have been submitted by people. By the way, if you do want to submit a question, go to KTV's Facebook page, Kent Television, www.facebook.com/Kent Television. I suppose the question here is asking, I'm not sure actually. Should I read it out again for you?
Yeah, sure, just read it out again and I'll answer it as best as I can.
Tom, would you not agree that the Society's executive is a poor replacement for the Society's federation due to lack of representation and accountability?
I disagree with that. I think for representation, I'd argue that it represents groups more so than Society's Federation did, now that we have the forum structure. So we have 5 forum reps, which cover the 5 forums, which of course are special interests, physical activities, political, religious, and societies. Sorry, let me start. So we have physical activities, special interest. Oh God, my mind's going a bit complete blank. But as I said, we have 5 different forum reps that cover all the demographics of society. So in that hand, we have better representation. On accountability, that hasn't really changed. We still upload our weekly minutes.
Okay.
We are always open to feedback from groups. We have lost the physical meetings that we used to have, unfortunately, but the only downside there was that the meetings were so... There was the possibility of so many people attending, and the fact that we unfortunately don't have a lecture or seminar room large enough, simply we weren't able to hold enough people to do that effectively, and that system never really worked, hence why we moved to the society executive structure. Although if people have ideas on how we can change it, I'm always happy to take them, and you can always email me on my email address.
Okay. So our next question for you is, what tangible improvements for students do you feel you've actually achieved in the last year? Because you said you've been working a lot more behind the scenes this year as opposed to last year.
Yeah. I think the main thing is just improving the general quality of our student groups. I mean, this year we've seen an increase in the number of students engaged in student groups such as societies, RAG, student media, etc. We've seen the quality improve and that we've seen more students get elected to committees. So last year we had, which was last year's election, we had one of our highest levels of engagement with the society elections. We had a record amount of positions filled. We're at one of our highest levels of societies. We now have 160 societies, which is an improvement of 20, which is a fantastic achievement. And generally, the quality of events that is happening is also better as well. So, for instance, International Showcase, we had Legally Blonde by Musical Theatre. We've had Interfaith Day, where the Society Executive just organised recently. We've had so many more trips abroad organised by society. So I feel, in that regard, my efforts have helped improve the overall quality of societies, which is in turn improving the student experience for students.
Okay, so on the subject of student societies, do you believe it's justified that societies have their accounts drained every year, even though the union is trying to encourage smart spending from societies?
Yeah. So this is about the membership funds being depleted every year.
Yeah.
Yep. So the argument on this is that for every member that joins a society, you pay whatever your membership fund is, and then the idea is you should get a return on that amount. So let's say, for instance, membership is £10, 30 people join, that's £300 that society has to play with. Now, of course, a society could argue we haven't spent all of that money, we want to save that money and save it for future members. However, the only problem is those current members then lose out, in the sense of that the money they've put forward has not been used for their benefit. And what this then creates a scenario in which a society could effectively just open up its membership, attract huge amounts of members, and then do nothing for the entire year, hold on to that money, and then wait until the second year for their new members to use that money. So those current members have lost out, which we don't feel is right, and hence why we have that membership system in place to ensure that societies don't have their funding drain. However, societies do have their suspense account. So say, for instance, your society did some fundraising, like bucket collections, outside essentials, a performance, etc., etc. That money goes into your suspense account, and that money you're allowed to keep, and that money rolls on every year. So it is only the membership money that societies lose, and that is simply to ensure that all society members get a return on their investment. And of course, what we recommend societies to do is to tap into their society membership first, and then tap into their suspense accounts. That way, they ensure that all of their membership money is used beforehand. And as I say, normally we see most societies not using that money. So my response would be, that's the reason why I have it in place. And if societies are having a problem with that, please make sure they do something with their funds, and also not go into their suspense account, use their membership money first.
Yeah, using a suspense account for when they don't have members yet, kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. So we are on our final question now, unfortunately. But our final question for you is, can you reflect upon one manifesto point that you have not accomplished and detail to the student body why it has not been done?
I suppose one manifesto point that I haven't been able to get much enjoyment with is lobbying the union for a RAG room.
Okay.
Fortunately, this was something I was very keen on to get, that we have a specific room for RAG to operate in, and unfortunately, it was felt by others that we should move to a more open plan system, and also a space that is open to all groups, not just one group in particular. The reason for this is that some unions, you've had groups where only one group has the room, and then no other group can use it. I mean, to give you an example, at the an Imperial Union, they have they have a comic book society, and they have a room that's probably about, you can't really see this entire room, but let's just say it's quite a large room, and it's filled just with comic books. So it's a fantastic resource, but only that society can use it, and no other society can use that space. So the argument was that if RAG had an equivalent space, only they would be able to use it, and no other student group would be able to use it. And it was felt that it would be best to have space that can be used by all groups, not just the one, which was something that I was very keen to achieve, but unfortunately was not And I suppose that's just life, isn't it? Life can be unfair at times.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Tom, for being here today. I hope that our viewers found that as insightful as I did. So next up we will have Jack Lay. I assume that he will be on his way in a moment. Yes. Here is Jack coming in now, so thank you very much, Tom. So just don't forget that if you want to submit a question, go to KTV's Facebook page at www.facebook.com/KentTelevision. Hi Jack, how are you?
I'm not feeling great, to be honest. I'm a bit ill, but I'm fine.
It's that sort of
end of term, end of year,
end of week,
yeah.
end of everything.
Yeah.
All right, so we have some people who have submitted questions.
Excellent.
Let's start with our first one. In your manifesto last year, you pledged to campaign for refurbished study spaces in colleges.
Mm-hmm.
Please, can you provide an update on this?
So where we are with this is basically information services, the people who run the library and kind of all the study spaces on campus have committed in their next 2-year plan to refurbish all the college committee spaces, college study spaces in the colleges, I guess. So, and they also have, they're doing some focus group work with students at the moment, and students from some of the college committees, which I've put them in touch with to make them look a bit like, so the Darwin one will actually look a bit like Darwin stuff. So yeah, it's happening. I just probably haven't communicated that as well as I should have done.
Okay, so it'll be happening sort of over the next 2 years kind of thing.
Hopefully over the summer, I think is the plan, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I can get back to whoever asked that question though.
Okay. So our next question is, you have had a lot of wins this year, so what is on the cards next for you?
In terms of what what for the next 2-3 months while I'm in post,
I suppose so, yeah.
I'm just tidying up kind of a few of my final projects. Really, I've got an exciting strategy to come out in the next next month or so, which will come out, and just a few other things, tidying up the course prep system really, and just making sure my handover is as good as possible for my successor. So no more real wins as such, but I think I've done a lot this year anyway. So.
Okay, that's really nice to hear. So will you pressure your fellow colleagues to release progress updates on a regular basis, like you do to increase transparency, rather than delay such accountability until election season? So I suppose you're...
Yes, yeah. I mean, we all have a page on the website where we can publish, on the Kent Union website, where we can publish what we think and what we're up to, and I do in addition publish stuff on my blog, but that's just the way I am. I guess it's up to other people how they want to do their own progress reports, but it's something that I think all Sabbs should be thinking about, is how they are accountable to the membership. But I don't necessarily agree that a progress report is like the style of mine may not be the best way for, say, the sports officer to be accountable. It might be best for them to, say, go and just meet with sports clubs all the time, so it's a different way, and you have a slightly different audience anyway. So okay. I won't push for them, but I think all Sabbs at the moment, and especially next year, will be thinking about how to be accountable to the membership.
Yeah. Okay, so our next question for you is, do you believe that the Students' Union should be an independent organisation from the university, or just a funded service run partnership?
I mean, you can't really have one or the other, because in an ideal world, I think a student union would be fairly independent, but I think a lot of our roles and responsibilities that we have to do are kind of core functions, basically representing students and giving student advice and allowing students to have fun and relying on the university. So as much as having an independent students' union would be amazing, we're so reliant on the university anyway, it seems silly not to be tied into them. To be honest, in my opinion, I think when the union and the university work together in partnership, that's when the best results happen. And I think trying to be completely separate or different from the university doesn't always pay off in the long run for students. Yeah,
that seemed to be a running theme this year in the elections. Everyone definitely wanted to work with the university.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so our fifth question for you now. Already on 5. Wow, speeding through these. Your response to the Green Paper suggests that you support tuition fees increasing year on year. Can you explain this? Surely this is just playing up to the system rather than working to take the fee burden off of students.
I don't actually agree with... I mean, it's hard to describe my views because I'm quite a pragmatic and practical way of my ideology works. So I think in an ideal world, we wouldn't have tuition fees and we'd have graduate tax, which I still think people should be paying towards their higher education. I don't believe rich kids should be subsidised by the state to go to university. I think people should pay to come to university, but I think for a fair graduate tax system is better. I can understand why universities want tuition fees to go up in line with inflation every year, because actually they've had a cut in funding over the last 2 years. But ideally, the government should be funding this, not students. But I think in the current climate, I can kind of understand why people say this. And so I think that's probably why the mixed messaging has come across from my views in the Green Paper. But I don't agree with tuition fees raising. I mean, as I said, in an ideal world, there'd be a graduate tax, I think, and that's my view on funding.
Well, thank you for that clarification.
That's okay.
Our next question is, how do you respond to the low engagements of students with the union and its events and activities throughout the year? And what should we do to boost engagement?
It depends on what you define engagement as. I mean, I think we have 52% of students are involved in a sports club society or involved in some kind of union life. So that's actually quite good engagement, I would say. And we have a relatively high turnout in elections, just over 25%, which is quite good across the country. Obviously, we'd want it to be as high as possible, but comparisons to other universities, we do quite well. So it depends how you define it. But I think just making sure, I think we're using communication tools to the best of our way, and that's what we did. We redesigned our website over the last 2 years, and we've increased the hits on that, and making sure students are up to date with what they want to know about, because I think people sometimes go and think that students should be more involved in everything or want to know about things, but a lot of members just want to know about what's happening at a local sports club every week, or how they can be involved if they've got a problem. So I think as long as students know where we are and what we do, the engagement will come naturally. So I think just making sure we improve our communication as much as we can will be the way to do that. But I don't think we're doing badly at that at all at the moment.
Okay, so unfortunately, last but not least, can you reflect upon one manifesto point that you have not accomplished and detail to the student body why it hasn't been accomplished or done, per se?
I think I've made progress on all my manifesto points, but I guess the most disappointing one is I pledged about library fines when I was to be re-elected, and actually looking at how we can make them a fairer system. I've managed to get the university to start reviewing the way they do library fines, and over the last couple of weeks I've had focus groups with a number of students thinking about what they will do, but I guess it's taken almost 9 months to kind of get that off the ground, and there's not going to be a change before I'm finished, so that's been quite frustrating. But we've made progress towards it, but it's slightly disappointing that perhaps we haven't got as far as we want to.
On the upside, I guess it is managing to go further.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still the argument to be won with the university about library fines, but at least they're open to the concept of reviewing them, and there might be a slightly better system in place over the next couple of years, but that'll be once I've gone, unfortunately.
Oh, well, you can always look back and see what you've accomplished.
Exactly, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming here today and
That's
answering our questions. Our next person up will be Tammy. So I think Tammy's just on her way as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And don't forget, everyone, if you want to submit a question, you can do it. You can do so at the KTV Facebook page, www.com/Kent Television. Hi, Tammy.
Hello.
Tea in hand.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to leave it out to get cold.
No. I hate that.
Yeah.
Alright, so question number 1. When you ran for union president in 2013, you pledged in your manifesto to lobby Kent Hospitality to lower the cost of laundry. In fact, it seems that laundry facilities are getting worse with the prices going up and the machines appear to be breaking more often. What is being done to improve this?
So, yeah, to be fair, it's taken a very long time, but we have been talking to Kent Hospitality. We started talking about the cost, and then we realised actually there was a bigger issue, and it was about the fact that a lot of them weren't up to scratch, and the fact that loads of students were losing money in the machines, etc., and it wasn't consistent across the university. So some paid with their Kent One cards, and it was a cashless system, how to pay. Some had really brand new machines, some had really old machines. So we've been looking at the laundrette facilities across the campus, and in fact I've been working with the Parkwood Student Committee recently. They did, because they realised that actually they had very, very bad quality machines, particularly for the houses. So they ran a big campaign with lots of bubbles to try and raise the profile with Kent Hospitality, because whilst they recognise that there's an issue, they don't seem to understand how important it is. So what we're trying to do at the moment is actually get them to recognise that students do actually care about it, and it's something that they need to do something about.
Okay, so our next question for you is that in your manifesto, technical issue. In your manifesto, you said that you pledged to start a union-led union-run letting agency with no fees. As we approach the end of term, it still doesn't seem to have happened. Can you provide an update for us?
Sure. So it's been something that we've been talking about for the whole year, and we started off by, because obviously quite a big project, so we started off by exploring it with our board of trustees. So we went off and we looked at lots of other unions, to try and actually see if it was something we could financially do. Now we're getting to the point actually where we don't generally think that it's something that we could achieve. So we've got a project group together looking at it, and a lot of the work that we're doing at the moment will lead on to next year. So Rory next year we'll be carrying on looking at this project, and we're hoping that it will be coming to light very soon. But yeah, it's essentially about making sure that everything is right, so that when we get started, we're not going to come across problems. We need to make sure, because it's such a big thing, and it's not something that all student unions do, to make sure that we get it right, so that actually it does end up providing for students rather than being a massive flop.
Yeah. So another point in your manifesto, you said that this year, being last year, you'd worked on a Wednesday card, which offers things like discounted entry and queue jump on a Wednesday night at venue. What happened to that?
So in the end, we ended up looking at a loyalty scheme instead. It was something that I came in wanting to do, but then we started looking more broadly. So not only venue, what do we do about loyalty schemes across the campus? And then we started looking at Yo-Yo, which is a scheme that we're still developing, that we've introduced in some of the outlets. It's a payment scheme, but the idea is that it's also a loyalty scheme at the same time.
Okay.
So that when you buy stuff, be it from the shop or you're paying for entry and venue, it records that and it remembers that, and so it'll come back and be like, oh well, you've been to venue 5 times, here's a free here's a free entry. And it's a scheme that we've only just started, and not many people have taken it up yet, but we're looking to further develop, and we're working with the company Yo-Yo, who works with a lot of other universities as well, to try and develop it further so that it becomes something that everyone uses and recognises. But it's we're getting along there, but it's not still where we want it to be, and I'm hoping that my successor will carry on looking at that.
Okay. So you had also pledged to organise a termly question and answer session with the Vice-Chancellor in your election manifesto.
Yeah.
According to an editorial in Inquirer, the last one fell very short of expectations, and unfortunately not many students seem to have been made aware of it. So what happened, and why was it not as successful as you probably hoped it would be?
So this year we tried to do, because last year we also did Vice-Chancellor's question time, which we did it in the College Ferguson, and it didn't have very good uptake. And then we did the one with Inquirer and KTV in her office instead, and we thought that maybe if we televised it, we put it in the newspaper, then it might have better uptake. And again, people didn't seem to engage, and I think it's something we're still looking at. I didn't want to just do it again without still knowing why it is that people aren't engaging. So I think at the moment we're just trying to think of why aren't students engaging, and what could we do better. I think we got a lot of questions in, but perhaps the way the questions were investigated wasn't up to the level that was needed. Perhaps as well, students didn't realise what it meant, and I think that we need to look at what the best medium I think will be to try and engage more students in it.
So do you hope to continue that on then?
Yeah, I hope that next year's officers will, but I think it's about looking a bit more about what kind of ways can be used to engage, because we've tried to do physical, we've tried to do online, so maybe it's not actually about the formatting, maybe it's about the questions being asked, maybe it's about the way we're engaging students to actually ask questions, and kind of looking at that a bit more broadly. But at the moment, I've been focusing more on our own accountability stuff, so actually kind of looking at change it and how we're going to improve that and things like that. And I think that it's better to kind of get your house in order first and then kind of look at more externally later on.
Okay, so our next question, it's about the theft from Essentials in the Kent Union recently. They're saying a lot of students are stealing because they say the prices are too high. So how do the officers respond to this, and are we not losing a significant amount of money from shrink or theft?
To kind of answer that in 2 questions, so the fact that students might be stealing because prices are too high, I think that would definitely concern me if that were the case, purely because I don't think that would justify stealing just because prices were high. Because you wouldn't do that anywhere else, and I think that that's something that we need to explore a bit further and kind of actually students' perceptions of what's acceptable and what isn't. But I think with the prices too high, I think that's a communication issue, because actually our prices aren't, when you look at the basic things, so we try to do a price match with Sainsbury's down the road, because that's our closest competitor, and we actually have a price match with them on things like bread and milk, those basics, to make sure that ours are the same or cheaper. But it's true that some items are going to be more expensive, because we are the equivalent of a Londis, a corner shop, a co-op.
Yeah.
We aren't a Tesco. So I think that students need to consider when they do shop at Essentials that it's not going to be the same as going and doing an Asda online order, because we're not that size, so we don't have that capacity to be able to buy massive amount of stuff and sell it really cheap. We don't make a massive profit from Essentials, and the profit that we do make goes back into actually funding the union. So I would dispute our prices being too high, but perhaps it is something we need to look at. Actually, do students not have enough money? Do we need to look at what funding opportunities there are for students, and like hardship schemes and things like that the university offers, as opposed to the other side? So kind of looking at more the cause rather than the effect.
All right, so our next question that we got from students was, what is the current status of the new Student Activity Centre and Building Up campaign, which was launched by Kent Union back in 2013?
So it's still something we're trying to push along. At the moment, we've gotten to the point now that we've actually spec'd out what we want from the Student Union building. We did loads of exercises. We went and looked at other universities. We had an architect that we've been speaking to that's been employed by the university to actually scope the project. And now we're just kind of trying to finalise those things with the university. So the university have agreed in principle to give us the building, but we just need to kind of keep on at them to make sure that it happens. So it's in their plan, because as you've probably noticed, there's billions of things being built on this campus at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that we just need to carry on making sure that it is in the pipeline. It's something that's been promised to us, and we just need to carry on making sure that it does happen.
All right. So some students have seen your campaigns this year running regarding the college communities, but why do you feel the college system is so important for students?
So I came up through the college system, so I think I've got a little bit of bias in the sense that I think that I gained a lot from it. Also, I work quite closely with the college committees, and over my 2 years as college president, as union president, they brought up lots of issues to me about the collegiate system, particularly with the fact that it has a lot of potential when you think about the communities that it can create, about the support that it can give to students, but it doesn't do that at the moment because it doesn't work. So we've been looking at other universities and kind of see that have the college system and kind of see how they use it to their benefit. And actually there's so much interesting stuff that we could be doing and be taking advantage of with our college system, like the way that we induct students into the university, how we make them feel at home as soon as they arrive, how we manage base level sports. So actually students who don't want to get involved in bucks, how do we encourage them to still get involved in sport but still get the same support that you would be getting if you were competing nationally? All those little things, just to kind of try and improve the student experience at a lower level.
Okay. So Tammy, will you admit that the Change It, sorry.
Okay.
Tired today, end of the week. Will you admit that the Change It petition system is a massively undemocratic and burdensome failure that needs to be changed or eliminated?
I don't think I would say that. I'd say that it definitely has room for improvement, as all pilot schemes would. I would definitely say, having been here at Kent for 5 years, that it's the best system that we've had since I've been here. But yeah, it needs to be looked at. I mean, we completely abolished the previous system. It looks nothing like the system that we used to have, and we started completely from scratch. So, of course, over the year we've noticed things that do need to be improved. But that's kind of all part of these sort of projects. You run a pilot scheme, you see how it looks, and then you look at where it can be improved. And I think there are certain things that definitely could be tweaked, and we're really open to get student feedback, because obviously the students are the ones that are using it. And so if students are noticing problems with it, they need to let us know, so that when we do come to the review process, which is very soon, we can then say, well, these are the issues that have come up prominently, we need to resolve these bits.
Okay, so would you say to students that they should probably do that sooner rather than later
Yes,
this year?
definitely.
Okay, so can you reflect upon one manifesto point that you haven't been able to accomplish and tell us why?
Let me think of something. So one thing that I haven't been able to do that I said that I would, it's difficult because all of them I have worked on, they've come to different points. What I'm hoping, I don't think that any of the manifesto points that I brought up are at the end of their story. I think that I know that I'm on my way out, but the way that Kent Union works is not that you come in as an officer and you get something done in a year or 2 years. Some things you do get done straight away, but some things take extra time. Some things I might start this year and they may not look like they're anywhere near it, but in 5 years' time, someone's going to be saying, yes, actually, we've got that done. Like the library, we didn't get that in 1 year. It was Jack working with his predecessors who managed to achieve finally having a 24-hour library. And I think with all of the things that the officers are working on, I think that it's about kind of thinking more long-term and strategically about the things that we're trying to achieve. So I wouldn't say that none of my things haven't been achieved. They're on their way to being achieved.
Yeah, it's just more long-term projects
Yeah.
that you can't work on for the time being.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so we have one last question for you.
Sure.
It's a bit of a random one. If you were a soup, what kind of soup would you be and why?
I know who sent this in actually because one of my volunteers said they would. I'd be a minestrone. I've decided I'd be a minestrone soup because it's a bit of everything. It's quite exciting.
Got a little bit of
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming along today
No worries,
and
thank
clarifying
you.
some things for our viewers.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. All right, so next up we're going to have Nina along. So just remember, if you haven't submitted a question, submit a question. Go to KTV's Facebook page and go to www.facebook.com/Kent Television and answer one of our questions. So we just have Nina coming in right now. Come sit down with us, please, Nina.
Hello, sorry.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. You alright?
Yeah, doing well. You're the last one of us today, and then we have Rory's VT next. So,
Cute.
so last but not least.
Yeah.
So,
Best till last, right?
Sorry?
Best one till last.
Exactly. All right, so question number 1 for you. In your 2015 election manifesto, you pledged that I will work towards gaining an overall sponsor for Team Kent clubs. So what has happened with that so far?
Ongoing work. So actually we are progressing quite well. We met with all of our sports clubs, I think last week or the week before, to find out who their current sponsors were, kind of how much money they get. And hopefully going out to attract potential funders for next year, because we wanted to ensure that whatever funding we got from an external sponsor for Team Kent didn't kind of counteract what our clubs already got. So it has to be above and beyond. But yeah, that should be working, and fingers crossed for September 2017 we'll have an overall sponsor.
Yeah,
So it's going well.
So that's definitely something that's sort of been bubbling in the background.
Yeah, because it's obviously not just kind of like, oh, let's go out and get someone to sponsor. So there's so much like
Yeah.
behind the scenes, like, as I said, making sure that we don't take away funding opportunities from our clubs that already have like incomes. And then I don't know, there are bigger events like Varsity that can be sponsored, Team Kent Ball, just to name a couple of them. So it's a bigger than just saying we want to sponsor for Team Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so question number 2. How would you improve college sport at university?
How would I improve?
Improve, yeah, college sport.
A good question. College sport, it's a bit of an anomaly, to be honest, because it doesn't sit under Kent Union. It currently, so Kent sports run really weirdly at Kent. So half of it sits under Kent Sport, which is the university sport department. So that's all the college sport, intramural stuff, and then Kent Union, the student union, have all of the Team Kent clubs. So currently, there is no link up between not only the Team Kent clubs and the college clubs, but also the college committees and the college sport. So confusingly, college committees sit under Kent Union and college sport, as I said, sits under the university. So bold move, but I would say we would move the structure of sport to have college teams under Kent Union and move some of our performance teams to sit under Kent Sport. And I think we'll just get a better link there. So the college committees will actually have a role in terms of supporting the college sport, and progression from college sport through to Team Kent Sport will be a lot better, and more people hopefully be involved.
Yeah, so is that something you've been working on recently?
Yes, so we're currently writing a joint sports strategy, the first one ever actually, which is really cool, between the University of Kent and Kent Union, and outlining some of those issues and some of the kind of 5-year plans with sport, and that being one of them, hopefully.
Okay, cool.
Which is cool.
Next question from our students. Why do you believe students need an elected representative in sport? Surely there are bigger priorities when it comes to representation for students.
Yeah, so I suppose we have part-time officers for those, but why do I believe it? Because I think there's the whole wellbeing agenda around it, and I think it's something that we've massively pushed, and the co-curricular education stuff I'd personally argue for. So Jack and I, who's the VP Education, have done a lot of work around the fact that student experience and education is about so much more than just coming to university and, you know, going to your lessons every day. It's the whole university learning experience, and I fear that with the general commercialisation of education at the minute and the pressure on students, that without a representative in roles like student activities and sport, that type of education and all that side of the education will so quickly be lost. And that's our job, to ensure that students have a great experience here. Yes, so to say, Jack and I are doing some long-term work around ensuring that Kent can provide a co-curricular education, to say that the fact that, I don't know, you're on the rugby team gives as much value to you here as your philosophy degree does, and they're both kind of interchangeable and they enhance one another. So I think that's why you need elected representatives in roles like sport and activities.
Alright, so our next question kind of revolves around something that seems to come up every year.
Yeah.
And it's to do with Medway and Canterbury.
Okay.
So how did the sabbatical officers propose that we reconcile the differences between students participating at Medway and at Canterbury? And is it reasonable to say that we have not kept our promises to fellow students at Medway?
Yeah, so Medway actually has been a bit of work we've been doing quite a lot on for the last 6 months around kind of participation. So we've seen, scarily, our participation at Medway in sport drop by 50% over the last 3 years. It's mad. So we've been doing some work around to find out like why that is. Our students just not wanting to engage. We've got a very different demographic of students over in the Medway campus, and actually there at the minute is just no provision there at all. We're doing a bit of work, I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say at the minute, around hopefully getting an on-campus facility for sport on the Medway campus. And I think it's really, really hard for officers to balance the two, like the Canterbury and the Medway argument, but I think as long as they're doing work and fighting big issues like participation gaps and lobbying for the same things they would do, or proportionate things they would do for Canterbury students, then I'd say they're doing a good job. But it's always a difficult one because we're based on Canterbury, but as long as we're doing lobbying work and work for our students over there, then I'd say it's okay. So
it definitely sounds as though you're trying to still keep Medway even compared to Canterbury.
Definitely. So I work on the same projects over there as I do here. So both the varsities, so Medway varsity and Canterbury varsity, these are like operational projects we do as an officer. And then both the sports balls and the awards. And they're the same. It's just where like your campaigning work it is different. But I've always tried to do more issues that matter to Medway students, always campaign for a couple of years, which is good. And the biggest one being this sports facility, hopefully, which would be amazing.
So something that has been pointed out by one of the students is that do you think taking on other responsibilities in BUCs and NUS has adversely affected your ability to your job here?
In terms of time, potentially, but not so. I think actually it's enabled me to grow as an officer massively. Comparing, I'd say, myself to this point 2 years ago to now, I wouldn't be the same type of officer I was if I wasn't involved in both these national roles. It's helped kind of be involved in like national campaigns, such as one of them is ensuring that we have a trans policy for people in sport. Currently, no national governing body has a trans policy to enable trans students to actually access sport on campus, and that's a massive issue, and I don't think that's at all affected my work here, because it's still important to Kent students, because if we don't do it, then no student nationally can be involved in sport. I think, as I say, it's hard work and it's time consuming, but I suppose that's the commitment you make when you take on other roles, but it's definitely helped shape the officer I am and help with my campaigning work, and having that support network and like other staff resource that you can use for things is great.
Well, thank you for that clarification.
No worries.
And so we have one last question for you. It's one that we've asked everyone so far. So if Can you reflect upon one manifesto point that you have not been able to accomplish and explain to us why?
Yeah, I was thinking, because I heard you ask, you know, what are going to ask me? And I was like, there are two, I suppose. One around, I know that officers have been working on it for ages. I suppose a good one for students as well is the swimming pool argument. Everyone always asks officers to lobby for a swimming pool, which is fine, and it's what students want. And it's not that we haven't completed it. I think we've progressed with that argument. But what's happened to that particular point is it's gone now for the first time, which is great, gone into the university's estates plan, which is really, really good. But they have a 5-year and a 10-year estates plan, and the swimming pool sits in the 10-year one, and it's right at the bottom. So it's kind of so like minor of a priority for them. And I think that's worked for the officers over the next 2 to 3 years to say, actually, this is either what students want or don't want, and to ensure that actually happens. And then maybe the other thing is around the direct debit payments for Kent Sport membership. So Kent, the most archaic university we know, apparently don't have direct debit payments for anything, such as accommodation and gym memberships. And apparently we don't have the current infrastructure, but that's something we're hopefully working on to get sorted. So obviously I can't fulfil that point because the infrastructure isn't there, which is frustrating.
Yeah,
but
you need to talk about with the union. Work that out with them.
Absolutely, and it's not Kent Union, it's the university actually, but we have managed to get a compromise and get a termly payment set up for 2017, which is good, and kind of small steps to the bigger picture, I hope.
Baby steps.
Yeah, honestly, that's what it's like at Kent, everything 10 years.
Yeah, everyone here seems to have had that kind of idea where it's like everything's long term. It's not year by year. It's long term.
But that's really good, isn't it? Because I think I remember someone saying to me, they're like, always think like 5 years into the future and where do you want to be? And I think that's the best way, especially knowing that I don't know, things like the 24/7 library were on officers' manifestos like 6, 7, 8 years ago and have been worked through, and that's just kind of how university politics works.
Now we have it.
Yeah, exactly. Now you have it to prove, and that'll be the same as some of the other things, hopefully.
Yeah, I was saying to Jack as well. You can look back in 5 years and go, I did that.
Yeah, or at least I started that. Yeah, exactly. Because it is kind of hopefully that's the thing with being an officer, finding someone to carry on some of the work that you've done, which is hard.
All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you. So now, because unfortunately Rory Murray couldn't actually make it today, we have a short clip for you to watch of him answering some questions.
So the opportunity to be next union president and thinking about what my first job will be is really exciting. I think the most important thing to remember is I've still got 3 months left of my current job as people welfare. I've got a lot of projects that I want to finish off before I move on and hand some of the next projects over to Clara. As well as I think one of the most important things for this summer is about making sure the team have a really good summer and we make the most of that summer. And I'll be starting work on some of my really exciting projects around actually how we get university to recognise how important extracurricular activities are.
The subject of gender-neutral toilets was a contentious issue during the leadership elections, with one candidate receiving a high amount of unfair abuse about the topic on social media. What should or can be done to challenge the misinformation and ignorance about transgender rights?
So I think the first point to pick out there is around the abuse that candidates got during elections, and I think that's a really important thing for me to pick out. I think the abuse that some candidates got during these elections is totally unacceptable, and I never want to see that as an election at Kent again. Gender-neutral toilets, I don't think they're contentious at all, and it really surprised me they became a contentious issue. I think across the university we would have a very number of limited gender-neutral toilets. This isn't to say that the university would ever totally remove gendered male and female toilets, but saying that actually for those students who want to access gender-neutral toilets, that they should be able to have easy access in the building they use on a regular basis. So I think more of the things that we need to be doing is just communicating that message and making sure there's no misinformation out there. So if I was compiling my handover document and thinking about one top bit of advice, I think the biggest bit of advice is get out there and talk to students. I think it can be really easy at times to be sucked in by emails, meetings and everything else that officers have to do. But actually, when we go out and talk to students, we remember actually some of the really important issues and other things that really fire us up and get us performing our best bits of work. So this year we held the first ever Shag Week that we've had on this campus, but it's something that lots of other universities do across the country, and I'm really proud of how it went. I think at times we struggled with some of the engagement during the week, but actually some of the really exciting events were like the STI testing, that we did an STI testing competition for sports clubs and we got them involved, and we had over I think 100 sports club members get involved in that STI testing. So that's a really fantastic bit of work, as well as
holding the first ever consent lesson on this campus. So again, some really exciting work. I think the thing we need to do more for next year is get more students involved, as we always can, with these awareness campaigns.
In your manifesto last year, you wrote, "I'll set up a citywide student council that can lobby Canterbury Council on behalf of all the students living here." Can you please provide an update for that?
Yeah, so we've done some really interesting work this year with Canterbury City Council. It's been quite challenging at times, our relationship with Canterbury City Council, and the reason that a huge amount of work has progressed in this area is because Tammy has been sitting on something called a Student Impact Review, and that has been looking actually about how students engage with local government, how they engage with Canterbury, and I think it's really important that we see the recommendations of this report first and foremost. But I think one thing that I'm really clear, really proud of, is how much engagement we've had with Canterbury City Council this year, and how we've met with Simon Cook on multiple bases, and how we've got students involved in that decision-making process. But it's definitely something I want to further my work on next year. So if I had to pick one thing that I was really proud of and one thing that I could have done more work on, I think the thing I'm really proud of is our work around zero tolerance sexual harassment in town. When I first started last year, I was really uncertain about how much progress we'd make. But actually, I'm really excited that we might soon become one of the first cities in the country to place a duty on licensed premises, pubs, bars and clubs to tackle sexual harassment in their outlets. So I'm really excited by that bit of work, and hopefully that will make some real progress over summer. But we finally got there with that. If I was to think of one thing that I wish I'd done more of, or we could have done differently, really difficult. But I wish I started on my mental health research work a little bit earlier, but actually I'm really excited that hopefully that research will be complete and I'll be presenting it in the summer term to university. Yeah, so particularly on zero tolerance and our progress with that, to give some information, actually last week on Thursday I presented to the licensing forums. That's where all pubs, bars and clubs come once every quarter to work with the council around different initiatives, and we presented the zero tolerance work to premises there for the first time and got a really positive reaction from them, all willing to buy into that. We just got to sort of confirm what the package will now offer to licensed premises. That's worked really well. I think the thing with Canterbury City Council and the Kent Police is that we just got to keep communication up, and I'm really excited that we've made some real progress on this year, and definitely something that will continue next year.
In your election question time, you said you were proud of all the work you've done to stop cuts to maintenance grants, but you didn't say anything about what you'd actually done. Can you outline what you've done in this area and what impact it's had to actually stop this awful idea?
Yeah, so the work that the officers, and I say the officers because it's been all 5 team, have been involved in maintenance grants. So last summer and start of the last year's budget, the Tory government decided they wanted to cut maintenance grants, which we know will have a massive impact on our students here at Kent. So the officer team between them went, actually this is a massive bit of work and a real priority area for us. So we lobbied all our MPs at both Canterbury and the Medway campuses. We started a petition for students here in Canterbury and students over at Medway. The one with Medway was joint with Greenwich, and we continue to lobby and bring this issue up at every relevant area, as well as working with the NUS to lobby on a national stage. So, university accommodation prices. So when I first came into the role, one of my things Meg told me was that she'd managed to gain a seat at the table, so I'd be the first sabbatical officer to have a seat at the table to discuss rent prices. Last December we had those meetings, and they were really difficult meetings, because obviously I was sat there as Sabb going, actually it's not acceptable the rent price on campus, and the university were defending their right to do that and saying all the things around increased costs on them, which we have to understand as well. I think the thing that's really frustrating for us is that we've now lost our cheapest accommodation on campus. Now Rutherford has now got a food option on it. Earlier on today I was actually in a meeting with the university around actually devising a rent strategy for the next 5 years, and this will ensure that actually the ideas that we have around making sure that no one's priced out of accommodation become a really integral part of our rent setting process going forward. So it's an area of work which I'm not massively proud of, and I don't think we've had the impact we should have done, but going forward I think we're making the correct steps forward.
But wasn't it one of the sabbatical officers who implemented the additional food cost to the Rutherford accommodation?
So I think this is a really difficult conversation in lots of ways, because actually we know that students living in Rutherford and Elliot don't have access to good kitchen facilities, and all the feedback from students at Elliot on the whole have been really positive about this year. So although it will add, I think it's about £800 it adds on to the Rutherford accommodation, it removes their need to buy food. I think whichever way you look at it, there are both positive and negative things on that. The university decided to go ahead and implement it on Rutherford without consulting us. If they consulted us, I don't know what the decision would have been, and we'd have probably gone out to students to ask their opinion. I think one of the important things around us as student unions, we're there to empower our students and see what our students have to say. So things like a rent strike or any other campaign students want to run, we've now got campaigns for them which students can come to and pass ideas through and get ideas out of officers and support from officers. So I'd be more than willing to have a conversation and see what we can do. But I also think it's really important that we complement the officers' work. So officers are working on something that actually we can tell you what we're working on and allow you to form your campaigns around some of that work as well. So I think the first thing to say is I will absolutely be working on this year's manifesto and next year's manifesto over the next 18 months, well not even that, 15 months I have left, that's very scary. I think in terms of the number of places I haven't delivered on, I think about 80% of my manifesto is done or will be done by June, so that's really exciting, particularly on citywide Wi-Fi. We haven't done a massive amount of work on this, but the university have started looking at some of this work for us, along with some of the work we've done with Cambridge City Council around their tourism policy. So I can't promise anything yet, but I'm really hopeful that by the time I leave, stuff will be in trail or almost on its way there.
Hi everyone, and thank you so much for watching that last VT from Rory Murray. So thank you for all your questions that you've been sending in. I have been Annie Pilnick, and from all of us here in the studio, thank you for watching Keeping Tabs on the Sabbs from KTV.